This is part of a question. I have the second part coming. I've seen Father Seraphim's statement on correctness, in other words, his opposition to the super correct, I think that's what that means, being misused for pretty much anything under the sun, including against quote unquote corrective baptisms. And he says, I'm truly convinced it could be misused against himself as well. Is there a royal path for the statement's use and understanding without going off to the left and liberalism? That's the second part of the question I couldn't post. Is there a royal path? I'll put it here in a minute here.
Well, it seems like Father Seraphim is he's pointing to what he calls a correctness disease. At times he calls it correctness disease. He's very balanced. I mean, he's very balanced, but you have to read more than one quote to get that. You have to see how he lived his life too. I mean, is there a royal path with statements used and understanding without going off on the left? Yeah, so, man, this is just a tough question for me to answer, because I think anyone who's read Father Seraphim Rose at length will see that on the one hand, he certainly does care about the truth. I mean, his whole life is an example of pursuing the truth and finding the truth and going deeper and deeper and deeper into the truth. So he's not allergic to proclaiming the truth and pointing out errors and problems and dangers. But if that's done in such a way where you usurp Christian love and humility, and you're overly focused on being correct at the expense of love and the virtues, I mean, that's a correctness disease. That's a correctness that he would speak about.
Again, remember, he's talking largely about behavior, about the spirit, about the mentality. He's not talking about, per se, the question of baptism or the question of, prayer with heretics, or these are things that we have to. So the super correct is about a spirit or a mentality that may say the right things, right? That's the whole point. It's correct many times, but it's not correct. It's not just enough to be correct. You have to also have the way, right? The ethos. It's both and, right? So that's what Father Seraphim is getting at. It's not enough just to be correct. He said there'll be people who are going to be super correct and they're going to fall down and venerate the Antichrist. Why? Because the head knowledge is not enough. You've got to have the repentance. You've got to have the humility. You've got to make progress in the virtues. There's people who study in seminaries or in theological schools, even non-Orthodox, who know the fathers very well, or they know our church history very well. I mean, there was a whole segment of academics trained in Rome to know very well Orthodoxy. And they became like experts on Orthodoxy. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter in the least if you have that knowledge, if you're not a disciple and a humble one at that. So I think that's what the whole super correct thing is about more than anything. It's not a statement on. And so when people use it to bludgeon their particular issue, they're just showing themselves as not understanding Father Seraphim more than anything. I think that.
Yes. And just to add to that, there's a letter there in 1976, and you, Father, did a video going over this letter in detail a couple years ago. And this line has always stuck with me because I know it's a temptation for many of us. He says of Father Panteleimon, he says he's mostly correct as usual, but wrong in tone. Right, mostly correct as usual, and the correct is in quotes. Mostly correct as usual. It doesn't critique the correctness, actually, like the actual, like the facts, the information, but he says, but wrong in tone. That's what he sees, and that's what he drives home.
Yes.